coming to us from Stilfontein. Now, US President Joe Biden has paid tribute to former US President Jimmy Carter, describing his death as a great loss to the nation. Carter died yesterday at his home in Plains, Georgia. He was 100 years old. To reflect on the former US president's legacy, I'm now joined by Professor John Stremlau, an international relations expert from Wits University. Prof, compliments of the season. Great to speak to you as always. Now, when you talk about Jimmy Carter, there's various descriptors. They talk about one term in office, a former peanut farmer, a Nobel laureate, and many, many other things, including a humanitarian. What comes to mind for you?
Well, very much so. The man himself, I got to know him very well when I was director of the peace programs at the Carter Center for 9 or 10 years between stints here in South Africa. And I am overwhelmed by his decency, his character. And by the way, I think he probably willed himself to death. Now, he's been in hospice care since February 2023, and he's buried his wife, and he's taken care of voting for Kamala Harris. And I think he wanted to go out on the eve of Donald Trump's second inauguration, because the contrasts between Carter and the better angels of our nature, and Donald Trump, who lies and is contemptuous of the constitutional confines. Carter wrote an op-ed for the New York Times about a year ago, and he said that basically he was concerned about the disrespect for the Constitution by Trump administration. And I just think that having Biden in the White House as a contrast now between the incoming and the outgoing presidents is probably his last public service. Carter's. Now,
from what you know of President Carter, what would he like to have been known for in particular? I mean, he did so much for many, many people across the planet.
Well, basically, I struggled with this, whether his religion, which he was very devout Baptist, or was it racism? And I concluded, and he verified at his 90th birthday, that no issue had so galvanized his life than the race issue. Growing up in Plains, or Archery, Georgia, he spent most of his life in Plains, which is nearby. But Archery, Georgia, he played with young African Americans. They worked with African Americans. He befriended them as brothers, and then he had to listen to his church and to his constitutional government and to his father, who he revered, say to him that no, he just could not associate with people of color. And he felt, like Dr. King did, that it was the color of the character, not the color of the skin. And he devoted his life to human rights and to advancing fairness and non-racialism in the United States, but also wanted to sort of be involved in Africa, and was in a very heavy way, both on observing democratic elections in Africa, but also in public health programs, and in other ways that during his presidency he tried to play an instrumental role in the Lancaster House agreement, and he did, and in the independence of Namibia. He just couldn't crack the apartheid system, which was too tightly ingrained at that stage. But his second term, he would have made an effort to try to encourage a transition here. And he absolutely revered Nelson Mandela.
Well, we must talk about Carter's approach to diplomacy outside traditional government channels, such as his involvement in North Korea and Mali. And how do you think it's shaped global perceptions of soft power?
Well, this is a sensitive issue with me, because I couldn't see that the Carter Center could actually solve entrenched conflicts, but it could play a very constructive role in supporting democratic values and universal values that are in the human rights realm. And it was that consumed most of my time. And I think, in fairness to President Carter, most of his time, although he also, and this was another program at the Carter Center, was deeply involved in the eradication of guinea worm from the continent and the treatment of schistosomiasis, glaucoma, and onchocerciasis, and the scourges of African development, which has held the continent back. And he felt that if you could deal with public health issues, you could give Africans a fair shot at development and taking a role in the world that would show the fallacy and the evilness of slavery and discrimination that was so endemic to his beloved Plains, Georgia.
Now, before we let you go, what lessons do you think, Professor Stremlau, can modern international leaders learn from Carter's ability to blend compassion with strategic advocacy?
Well, what they can learn is that character matters, and that people remember your progress in civil rights more than they remember your interventions in Iraq or Vietnam or the dealings with Iran. That really it is the health of the American society, which is badly, badly flawed, as is this country, by the legacy of illiberal, white, ethnic, racial nationalism, and that has excluded the majority here and the minority in the U.S. And that's what he should be most remembered for, his striving for universal human rights as the first and foremost principle that was celebrated in the U.S. Declaration of Independence and has been the focal point of struggles in the U.S. ever since.
Professor Stremlau, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us. As always, Professor Stremlau worked with former President Jimmy Carter for about 10 years at the Carter Foundation and sharing our fond memories of how we remember President Jimmy Carter, who died